Most people believe they're leading from the front, but few ever stop to ask who is actually doing the leading. Is it the polished executive who speaks in practice tones at meetings? Is it the team builder always upbeat, always composed? Or is it something else? Something deeper, buried beneath the surface, quietly pulling the strings? Tired of feeling like a fake leader? Like you're just playing a role you didn't audition for? You're not alone. This isn't imposter syndrome. It's the cost of disconnection from your real self. But what if the secret to powerful leadership isn't becoming more of what the world expects, but reconnecting with the parts of you that were exiled long ago? Welcome to Jungian Psychology for Leadership, Power Through Authenticity, a journey into the unseen dimensions of your psyche, where shadows, archetypes, and the soul of leadership intertwine. In this documentary-style reflection, we'll explore how embracing authentic leadership isn't just about vulnerability or emotional intelligence. It's about self-awareness for leaders, deep, difficult, liberating self-awareness. We'll explore how Carl Jung's leadership psychology illuminates the dark corners of your identity, how the shadow self you've avoided might be the missing key to your growth, and how archetypes and leadership go hand in hand to reveal the true shape of your power. Whether you're a CEO, a coach, or simply a soul trying to lead your life better, you'll discover the psychological tools needed to lead from the inside out. If the search for clarity, transformation, and empowered leadership speaks to you, subscribe now. These are the kinds of questions that don't leave us unchanged. Let's begin, not with your title, not with your resume, but with a question Jung might ask. What parts of you have been leading without your permission? Because leadership is not a mask we wear, it's a mirror we dare to face, and the reflection begins in the shadow. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In leadership, that unconscious force has a name, the shadow self. The shadow is not evil. It is not broken. It is hidden. It is the container of everything you've disowned: your anger, your fears, your ambition, your envy, your insecurities, your power. When you deny these parts, they don't disappear. They go underground, and from there, they lead. The hidden saboteur. Think of the moments you've overreacted in a meeting, the passive-aggressive email, the need to always be right, the fear of delegating, the smile that masks quiet resentment. These aren't management problems. They are signs of leadership psychology in conflict, the shadow stepping in when the conscious self refuses to feel. In Jungian leadership terms, the shadow self in leadership often shows up as micromanagement, rooted in fear of failure, people-pleasing driven by fear of rejection, avoidance of conflict tied to unresolved trauma, dominance masking, vulnerability, emotional detachment from unprocessed pain. You're not just like that. You were made like that, shaped by experience, survival, and the roles you thought you had to play to be safe. But safety and leadership rarely share the same room. When the shadow leads left unacknowledged, the shadow becomes the quiet saboteur of teams. It leaks into culture, it breeds inauthenticity, it creates fear-driven workplaces that chase performance at the cost of humanity. But there's another path, one Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole. And it begins by turning toward the shadow, not away. Integrating the shadow, a leadership. Evolution integration doesn't mean indulging your darker impulses. It means honoring them, understanding what they're trying to protect. Here's how leaders can begin integrating the shadow. Practice. Emotional literacy. Label your reactions. Ask, what emotion is under this behavior? Notice recurring leadership conflicts. Patterns are fingerprints of the unconscious. Where there is repetition, there is shadow. Journal through discomfort. Ask yourself, what am I afraid people would see if I stopped pretending? What do I judge in others that I secretly suppress in myself? Seek feedback you fear, the mirror you avoid may be the one you most need. Lead from humility, not from knowing all, but from being with all. Your strengths, your struggles, and your shadow. This is not the quick path. This is the courageous one. Because authentic leadership isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. And only when the shadow is seen can it stop leading from the dark. But the shadow is just one piece of the puzzle. What if your leadership was also shaped by something older, something mythic? If the shadow is the part of you that hides, the archetype is the part of you that acts. Carl Jung believed that we are not blank slates. We are born into this world with universal patterns, psychological blueprints that shape how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, and how we lead. These patterns are called archetypes, and whether we recognize them or not, they govern the roles we step into, especially in leadership. Archetypes, the myth within you. Every great story has a familiar cast: the hero, the sage, the caregiver, the rebel, the ruler. These are not just characters, they are fragments of us, encoded in our collective unconscious, waiting to be awakened. Jung understood that these archetypes live inside all of us, and in leadership, they take the stage. The archetypes of leadership. Let's explore some of the most common leadership archetypes and the light and shadow they carry. The hero purpose overcomes challenges, inspires courage, strength, determination, motivation, vision. Shadow, burnout, savior complex, refusal to rest. Heroes lead by example, but they often struggle to ask for help. They must learn that victory doesn't always come through force, but through trust. The mentor, or sage, purpose, guides others with wisdom, strength, perspective, calm, insight. Shadow, detachment, arrogance, emotional disconnection. Sages inspire reflection and depth, but can lose connection with the human. Messiness of leadership. They must remember that real influence requires heart, not just intellect. The caregiver purpose protects, nurtures, serves the team. Strength, compassion, loyalty, service. Shadow, self-neglect, martyrdom, enabling dysfunction. Caregivers create safety, but often sacrifice themselves in the process. True, caregivers lead best when they remember. Boundaries are an act of love. The ruler purpose creates structure and vision, strength, strategy, order, confidence. Shadow, control, rigidity, fear of chaos. Rulers can build empires, but must avoid becoming tyrants. They lead most powerfully when they allow others to co-create. The rebel purpose disrupts the status quo, sparks transformation. Strength, innovation, boldness, independence. Shadow, chaos, alienation, self-sabotage. Rebels lead revolutions, but need grounding to avoid becoming flames that burn out. They thrive when paired with structure. Which archetype is leading you? No one is just one archetype. In fact, transformational leadership requires flexibility, drawing from multiple archetypes depending on the moment, the team, the challenge. But there is usually a dominant archetype, the one we return to under stress, pressure, or instinct. Ask yourself, when I lead best, who am I being? When I lead poorly, who am I becoming? What archetype do I admire? Which one do I resist? The answers reveal where growth awaits. And remember, every archetype contains a shadow. The hero may inspire, but may also refuse to yield. The sage may guide, but may isolate. The ruler may protect order, but may fear uncertainty. That's where the real work begins. Archetypes for executives and teams, for those in executive roles or leadership development programs. Recognizing these archetypes helps build balanced teams, spot leadership blind spots, create more authentic leadership pipelines, understand conflict patterns, guide personal growth with precision. Jungian psychology for executives is not a soft science. It's the soul of sustainable strategy, because when you know your archetype, you stop reacting and start responding. You stop performing and start leading. She stood in front of the mirror, not checking her appearance but searching her expression. Who am I when no one's watching? The question echoed, ancient and urgent. If this voice stirs something in you, leave a trace. Like, comment, subscribe. This is the moment leaders are born, in silence, in reflection, in truth. Archetypes give us language for who we are, but how do we change? How do we move? From awareness into action? To lead others well, we must first lead ourselves. Not with ego, not with authority, but with awareness. This is the essence of authentic leadership. The willingness to know yourself so deeply that leadership is no longer performance, but presence. It's not a trait, it's a practice, and like any meaningful practice, it begins within. The mirror doesn't lie, but it can be ignored. We live in a world that rewards output, deadlines, metrics, results, but none of that guarantees alignment. Leader can meet every goal and still feel empty, still feel reactive, still feel like they're pretending. Why? Because their inner leadership journey was left behind in the chase for external success. Jung believed that real transformation doesn't come from addition, but subtraction. Peeling back the layers of social conditioning, fear, and inherited roles until something essential remains. The tools of self-reflection. Self-reflection isn't navel-gazing, it's strategy for the soul. Here are 5 core practices aligned with Jungian psychology that help build authentic leadership from the inside out. The leadership mirror, daily awareness. Check in before your day begins. Ask, what part of me wants to lead today? Am I trying to prove something or create something? Where do I feel misaligned? Write down your answers. Patterns will emerge, and with patterns comes power. Shadow journaling prompts. Once a week, explore one of the following. What emotion am I hiding from my team right now? What feedback stung the most lately, and why? What do I wish I could say, but don't? These questions reveal where the shadow self is still unspoken. Archetype mapping. Identify your dominant leadership archetype. Then observe, when do I overuse this pattern? What archetype do I need more of right now? This brings balance, allowing you to adapt rather than over-identify. 360-degree, honest feedback. Ask your team, anonymously. When do I inspire you most? When do I unintentionally shut you down? What part of me do you think I avoid showing? Real feedback is an uncomfortable gift, but it cracks the door to authentic growth. Rituals of release. Jung taught that symbols, dreams, and ritual had power. Create small rituals for release. Burn a note of a behavior you're done with. Speak aloud a truth you've hidden. Sit in silence. After a difficult conversation, not to fix, but to feel. Ritual makes the inner shift real. The path isn't linear, it's cyclical. One breakthrough doesn't make you an authentic leader, but it opens a path. You'll cycle through shadow work. You'll meet your archetypes again and again. You'll forget, and then remember. That's the process. Authenticity is not a destination, it's a devotion. And in that devotion, something changes. You stop leading from fear. You stop reacting from defense. You stop needing to perform. You begin to lead from the ground of your true self. Why this matters now. In a world of automation, AI, and attention deficits, the rarest thing is a real human presence. That's what authentic leadership provides. Not just results, not just direction, but resonance. Teams feel it. Clients feel it, your family feels it, and more importantly, you feel it, because there is no longer a gap between who you are and how you lead. And if you've come this far, you're already different than when we began. But before we part, let's return to what truly matters. In the final chapter, we'll tie it all together. One last reflection, one final invitation. The end of this path is the beginning of your own. You've traveled far, not across countries or companies, but across yourself, through the hallways of the unconscious, into the rooms you once locked, past the masks you didn't know you were wearing. This is the quiet power of Jungian psychology. It doesn't teach you to become someone else. It invites you to remember who you truly are. Leadership is not what you think it is. It's not a title. It's not charisma. It's not control. It's presence. It's integrity. It's the ability to stand in discomfort without retreating and to bring others with you. Authentic leadership is a daily act of courage, and it begins where few are willing to go. Within key takeaways, what you've learned. Let's return to what we now know. The shadow self is not your enemy. It's your unacknowledged ally. Integrating it doesn't weaken you. It completes you. Leadership archetypes reveal the subconscious roles we perform. Understanding them helps you lead with agility instead of autopilot. Self-reflection isn't luxury. It's the foundation of empowered leadership. Without it, you build a house on sand. Transformation is internal first. Strategy without psychology is hollow. Execution without self-awareness is dangerous. You've been shown the tools, but their value is in the using. Because there is no perfect moment to begin, only the moment you decide. What kind of leader will you be now? Not to your board, not to your followers, to yourself. Will you keep chasing the metrics or sit quietly with the mirror? Will you perform or be present? Will you conform to the roles handed to you or craft your own? Your answer to that question won't just define your leadership. It will define your legacy, because the leaders who truly change the world are the ones who first changed themselves. You've reached the end, or so it seems. But the psyche doesn't forget what it sees. It doesn't unhear the truths you've heard tonight, and it will whisper to you, in tension, in dreams, in the moments between moments. When it does, listen. Let it guide you through the next door, to more questions, more awareness, more you. And if this journey marked you, if something inside you stirred or shifted, then stay with us. Explore the full psychology series, curated reflections on shadow work, self-discovery, and the soul of leadership. Like, share, comment what this brought up for you, and subscribe, not just to this channel, but to the leader you were always becoming. Welcome to the shadow and the light. Welcome to the beginning. Welcome home. See you into next video.